It's been a while since I've restored any speakers, so decided to pick these up at Goodwill. They are Cannon TLS model 822. Kind of a bookshelf speaker from, I guess they were made out in California during the late 70s, early 80s. 78 to 82, I think, is the date that these things were made. Now, of course, it needs a new surround on both speakers. I'm surprised they're in this good a shape with being over 40 years old. So I'll have to do that. Nice thick cabinets, all MDF. Which a lot of speaker manufacturers are still using particle board in the late 70s, so not so bad. So original Goodwill price was $18 on these, but since I got it on Senior Tuesday, which I qualify for that, they're only $13. I'll say about waiting until half price Saturday coming up here in a few days, but figured, well, I'll go ahead and pay the couple extra bucks and make sure I get them. So I'm going to take some measurements on the dimensions on the woofers and go ahead and order some surrounds and get these guys ready to start restoring. So I was thinking the surrounds weren't so bad on these old speakers, but as I pulled this driver out, the surround just kind of disintegrated and it's just in pieces here. So that's okay. They're getting replaced anyway. This is a little unusual. It's got a nice little pretty trim ring, but it's just glued right onto the gasket. So we'll clean that up and get that ready to go back on. Order some foam surrounds for these guys. They're 8-inch, and start to get them patched up again and playing one more time. Well, and I noticed the date code too here on these guys. Looks like they were made in the 12th week of 79. So that'd probably make these a 1980 model year. It looks like the speaker manufacturer is 514. I'll have to look that up and see who that is. That's it so far. Alright, well, the first step in refoaming these old 8-inch drivers for these Cannon speakers is, well, what I'm going to start with is clean up the gasket here. This special little gasket with a little trim ring built into it. So what I usually do is just peel a little bit of this paper in the back right here and just peel up one layer, and that kind of takes all this old glue off here and gets it prepared to go back on after you're done refoaming. And the next step is to take your little razor knife here and go around and clean up the basket. All that old residue there, glue and the original surround, and then clean up the cone too. It usually involves using a little bit of alcohol to kind of soak this, get it soft, and clean it up. I won't show that on camera because I don't have a tripod with me and I'm just doing this one-handed. Plus I've got other videos that I've shown that whole process. I don't need to do it again. So here we go. Now here's something I've noticed before on other speakers that I've done of this 70s vintage. When you feel them, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it feels greasy and kind of sticky. So initially when I first saw that, I thought maybe the speakers were stored in a kitchen or something, but it appears like what's happened is you feel that on all surfaces. So I think what it is just vinyl of this vintage over 40 years just starts, it's a plastic substance, made from petroleum products, so it just starts outgassing some of the oils, I think. So, well, easy solution, just get some 409, spray on it, clean it real well. I've already done this one. You can see it's smooth and it doesn't look or feel greasy anymore. But yeah, it's happened a number of times, so seems to just be what happens to this old wood grain 70s vintage vinyl. Yeah, I got a little package in the mail from the good folks at Simply Speakers, which is who I order foam surround kits from. So this is their standard 8-inch kit, which looks like it fits these drivers perfectly. So I'll go ahead and glue them in. Now the first step to this is you just take the foam and you turn it upside down, set it on the speaker, and you take the special glue they send you, this fast setting, what do they call it, MI 3035 speaker adhesive, and you put a thin coat of an 1/8-inch bead on the outside beveled edge here, or inside beveled edge, and then you smooth it out with your finger, and then you flip it over and get it lined up with the cone and glue it in. So I'll go ahead and do that on both of these. And then after that glue sets, then you just go ahead and run a bead underneath the outer edge and glue it to the basket. The whole process takes maybe an hour and a half, and then you're ready to go. So let me get started. Well, I am in Arizona, and it's maybe not summer, but it's at least fall, early fall. So it's still pretty warm, especially in the garage here. It's maybe 80, 85, and very dry, which makes this fast setting speaker adhesive that I normally use in my cool basement in Virginia, and normally have about maybe 10 minutes of setup time. Here you've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes. So I did both of these inner edges of these speakers at the same time very quickly. Still got plenty enough time to work with it, but it does dry quicker. So now I'm going to go ahead and put a bead of glue behind the outer edge here, between the if I can get this up, there we go, right there on the frame, between the frame and the surround. And then you do a centering method here where you get the voice coil centered so it doesn't rub. And usually very easy to do on most speakers. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And then we'll get them mounted back in their cabinets and see what they sound like. Alright, I got the surrounds glued on and the voice coil centered properly. They're not rubbing at all. So now I need to glue on these gaskets here that have the little trim piece on one side. But I need to get that clocked right. So I want the two voice coil wires to be at the very bottom. So I don't want to put it on like this, because even though the screw holes line up, if you look at the mounting on the in here on the cabinets, it's not up and top, bottom, side. It's like this. So we want this thing to wind up being about like that, which means it has to go on the speaker like that. So what I'll do is take some of this same speaker adhesive and just put some down here and on the foam itself, and then place the gasket back on and get that set. So I'll do that on both of these. Alright, these guys are pretty much ready to go back in now. Got the gaskets glued back on. So we'll go ahead and mount them in their cabinets and hook them up. Stay right here. Cooking dinner in a big black pot with an open fire and smoky haze. Congregated in a big open circle, cause we pass from the chalice, make we give Jah praise. I can feel it in the way, read it in the sign, touch it on the warmest. Well, they're sounding pretty good, and really just finished them up about 30 minutes ago. Got the drivers stuck back in the cabinets. Pretty nice sound for late 70s vintage speakers, two-way bookshelves. So what I still need to do though So here is the speaker covers, and the fabric has gotten loose over the years. So what you can do is use that same speaker glue that I was using to put the surrounds in, and put a bead down here and just stretch this over and hold it, or I'll staple it until that sets, and that'll stretch this fabric back and make it look new again. So that's what I'll do next while I'm enjoying the sound of those guys. So I use the speaker adhesive to go ahead and glue the loose fabric on the grills back down again. So they're looking really nice, stretched out again, and fitting pretty well on the speakers. So that's it. The Cannon speakers are sounding great and looking good again, and good for another 40 years, I hope.